Hello friends, welcome to RBI Insights. Today's our topic is RBI Act 1934. This is the third part of this series. In previous two parts we have covered till section 17 in detail. So if you haven't gone through it, please go through it, especially part 2 where the entire section 17 is covered in detail. So let's start with section 18, Power of Direct Discount. When in the opinion of bank a special occasion has arisen making it necessary or expedient that action should be taken under this section for the purpose of regulating credit in the interest of Indian trade, commerce, industry and agriculture. The bank may, notwithstanding any limitations contained in section 17. So basically this section talks about special occasion. If any special occasion has arisen, so this special occasion means if there is any economic crisis in the country or financial instability or other circumstances which may affect the functioning of the economy. So in such a situation, the main purpose of the RBI would be to regulate the credit in the interest of the Indian to regulate the credit in the interest of Indian trade, commerce, industry and agriculture. And to do so, if there are certain limitations in section 17, that limitations would not withstand in section 18. So what RBI does to regulate credit in the interest of Indian trade, commerce, industry and agriculture. So RBI purchase, sell or discount any bill of exchange or promissory note, though such bill or promissory note is not eligible for purpose or discount by the bank under that section. So in section 17 there is in section 17 I think in subsection 1 only the purchase, sale and rediscount of bill of exchange and promissory note clause is there. So in that clause certain conditions are there which the banks and financial institutions has to fulfill, after which only RBI can purchase, sale or discount the bill of exchange or promissory note. But when any special occasion arises like economic crisis, then to regulate the credit, even though the bill of exchange or promissory note is not eligible for purchase or discount, RBI has to purchase it or discount it. Okay. Next that RBI do is make loan or advances to a cooperative bank on the recommendation of a state cooperative bank, to a cooperative society registered within area in which the state cooperative bank operates, or any other person, repayable on demand or on expiry of fixed period not exceeding 90 days on such terms and conditions as the bank may consider to be sufficient. So to regulate the credit under such economic crisis situation, RBI can make loans or advances to state cooperative bank on recommendation of the state cooperative banks, to cooperative societies and to any other person, payable on demand or on expiry of fixed period not exceeding 90 days on such terms and conditions as the bank may consider to be sufficient. The making of loans or advances to these state cooperative banks and cooperative societies is explained in section 17, but there are certain limitations in section 17, but that limitations will not contain in section 18 here. So while giving loans or advances under section 18, the bank may consider the bank may give loans or advances to these state cooperative banks or cooperative societies or any other person based on such terms and conditions. Certain terms and conditions will be there, but not that harsh terms and conditions. It will be somewhat easy. Bank will try to make the process easy and convenient. Next is section 18A, validity of loan or advance not to be questioned. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in any other law for the time being in force, A. The validity of any loan or advance granted by the bank in pursuance of the provisions of this act shall not be called in question merely on the ground of non-compliance with the requirements of such other law as aforesaid, or of any resolution, contract, memorandum, article of association, or other instruments, provided that nothing in this clause shall render valid any loan or advance obtained by any company or cooperative society, where such company or cooperative society is not empowered by its memorandum to obtain loans or advances. So, this section basically provides the protection for the validity of loan or advance granted by the RBI. That is, suppose any loan or advance has been provided by the RBI in accordance with the provisions of RBI Act, then it cannot be questioned merely because just there might be violation of any other law or regulation. It shall not be questioned merely on the ground of non-compliance with the requirement of such other laws as aforesaid or any other resolution. So, such loan shall not be questioned merely because that there might be some violation of any other law. For example, let's say if a company took loan from RBI but it did not follow its internal process as per its article of association, then in such case the loan's validity cannot be challenged. Okay. However, if a company or cooperative society is not authorized, if it is not authorized by its memorandum of association to take loan or advances, then the loan will not be considered valid. Next is where a loan or advance has been granted under clause 3A or under clause 3B of section 17 of a loan or advance granted under clause 3 of section 18 by the bank to any person has been applied by such person wholly or in part in making a loan or advance to any borrowers, any sum received by the borrowing bank on account of bill of exchange in respect of which the declaration under clause of 1 of the proviso to clause 3A of section 17 has been furnished, or in repayment or realization of the outstanding loan and advance referred to in clause 2 of the said proviso, or in the proviso of clause 3B of the said section, or by the borrowing bank or any other person in repayment or realization of loan and advances granted to a borrower out of funds obtained by it or by him from the bank under section 18, shall be utilized only for the repayment by the borrowing bank or other person, as the case may be, of the amount due to repaid by it or by him to the bank, and shall held by it or by him in trust for the bank until such time as amounts are so repaid. So this looks very complicated. I will just explain this in short what this part B is about. So the clause 3A and 3B of section 17 allows RBI to grant loan or advances to scheduled or state cooperative bank. So these loans are granted based on the promissory note for specific purpose like export of goods from India and for financing agricultural operations or marketing of crops. Means if you go through section clause 3A and 3B of section 17, you will come to know that these loans are to be granted against specific purpose like export of goods from India, financing agricultural operation, or marketing of crops or other agriculture purposes. And clause 3 of section 18 just we have seen above, which allows RBI to make loan and advances to banks during times of unusual demand, that is during economic crisis situation when the liquidity is tight. So whenever any money is received by the bank, whether it's repayment of loan or the realization of fund from bill of exchange, that is if any money is received by that particular bank's or scheduled bank or cooperative bank, if they are receiving any money by the repayment of loan, that is loan is being repaid, or through realization of funds from bill of exchange, then this money must be prioritized for repaying the RBI. So the bank must prioritize this for repaying the same to the RBI, and the funds received should not be used for any other purpose such as any operational expenses or any new investment until the amount owed to the RBI is fully repaid. So the whole part B is about this only. Next is section 19, business which bank may not transact. Save as otherwise provided in section 17, 18, 42, 45, the bank may not engage in trade or otherwise have direct interest in any commercial industry or other undertaking except such interest as it may in any way acquire in course of satisfaction of any of its claim, provided that all such interest shall be disposed of at the earliest possible moment. All such interest shall be disposed of at earliest possible moment. So what this section basically tells that businesses which bank may not transact. So what bank may not transact? Save as otherwise provided in section 17, 18, 42, 45. Except this, what bank cannot transact is basically RBI is prohibited from directly engaging in any commercial or industrial activity. That is, it cannot run a business. RBI is a bank, its purpose is not to make profit. So RBI is prohibited from directly engaging in commercial or industrial activities. That is, it cannot run a business, it cannot engage in trading activities or invest in industrial enterprises. However, if RBI can indirectly acquire a commercial or industrial interest while settling a claim, like there is any default of loan, but it must sell or dispose of it as soon as possible, at the earliest possible moment. Now let's take an example of, say, an XYZ bank has defaulted on a loan it took from RBI. As a part of recovery, what RBI will do? RBI takes over the assets from that XYZ bank, and suppose it includes the stake in ABC Steel Limited, a company. So since this stake is acquired as a part of settling a claim, RBI can hold the shares of ABC Steel Limited for short time. However, the law requires that RBI sell these shares at the earliest possible moment. So it will not sell, means it will try to sell it at the earliest possible moment, through which it can also get profit. So next is RBI cannot purchase the sale of any banking company or any other company or grant loans upon the security of any such shares. Okay. Next is RBI cannot grant advance money on mortgage of or otherwise on the security of immovable property or documents of title relating thereto, or become the owner of immovable property except so far as is necessary for its own business premises and residence from its officers and servants. RBI cannot give advance or loans by mortgaging any immovable properties or document of title relating to it, or it cannot become the owner of any immovable property except it is for its own use of, like if RBI has to start its office in any of the regions, so in that case RBI can purchase any premises or immovable property for its use or for the residence of its officers and servants. If RBI has to set any colony for its employees, in that case RBI can purchase any immovable property, but otherwise RBI is not entitled to do so. Next thing that RBI cannot do is make loan or advance except as mentioned in specific sections in the Act. Means it can make loan or advances but to specific persons only, as is stated in section 17. Next is draw or accept bills payable otherwise than on demand. So RBI only accept demand bills so that if it requires money, it can present the bill of exchange on demand and take money back. Next is RBI cannot allow interest on deposits or current account. Okay. So next is chapter 3, central banking functions. Under this first section is section 20, obligation of the bank to transact government businesses. The bank shall undertake to accept monies for account of the central government and to make payments up to the amount standing to the credit of its account and to carry out its exchange, remittance and other banking operations, including the management of the public debt of the union. So RBI is obligated to accept, deposit and funds on behalf of central government. Under this, RBI must accept monies for account of central government. So RBI has to accept, deposit and the funds on behalf of the central government. Next is RBI to make payments up to the amount outstanding to the credit of its account. So RBI make payments as instructed by central government, provided that this payment does not exceed the amount standing to the credit of the government's account with the RBI. Next is RBI carry out banking operations like currency exchange, remittance operations, that is it manages transfer of funds between different accounts or institutions, and other banking operations like providing financial advice, executing financial transactions on behalf of the government. Last is management of public debt. So this management of public debt is very crucial function of the Reserve Bank of India, which involves issuance, serving and strategic planning of government borrowings while maintaining stability in the financial market and to support economic growth. This effective public management ensures that the government is in position to fund its programs and initiatives. So this is also an obligation that bank has to manage the public debt of the union. Next is section 21, bank to have the right to transact government business in India. The central government shall entrust the bank on such conditions as may be agreed upon with all its money, remittance, exchange and banking transactions in India, and in particular shall deposit free of interest cash balances with the bank. So the central government shall assign bank with all its money, remittance, exchange and banking transaction in India. That is, whatever money central government has, it parks it with the RBI. All the remittance, exchange and banking transaction of the central government is being done by RBI, and this shall be deposited free of interest. So central government cash will be deposited free of interest with the bank, provided that nothing in this subsection shall prevent the central government from carrying on money transactions at places where the bank has no branches or agencies, and the central government may hold at such places such balances as it may require. So if central government has initiated say any scheme or project in areas where RBI has no branches or agencies, then in such conditions central government has freedom to handle such balances and financial transactions locally by appointing any authorized officials or agencies. Next is central government shall entrust the bank on such conditions as may be agreed upon with the management of public debt and with the issue of new loans. Okay, next is in the event of any failure to reach agreement on the conditions referred to in this section, central government shall decide what the conditions shall be. So if there is any failure to reach agreement on the conditions referred to in this section. So if there is conflict between RBI officials and central government officials that certain conditions are not to be inserted in the clause, then under such conditions central government will decide what conditions has to be inserted. Any agreement made under this section shall be laid as soon as may be after it is made before Parliament. So once the agreement is made before Parliament, if Parliament gives its permission, then as soon as it is laid before Parliament and it is approved, then RBI will work upon it. The next is section 21A, bank to transact government business of state on agreement. So this was section 21 was about central government. Now here 21A is about states. So bank has to transact government business of states also. The bank may be agreement with the government of any state undertake all its money remittance, exchange and banking transactions in India, including in particular deposit free of interest of all its cash balances with the bank. This is same as it was for the central government, that is RBI will take all the money remittance and exchange and transact the banking transactions in India for the states, and also deposit all its cash balances free of interest. Next, the management of public debt. So here also management of public debt for the states are also being carried out by the RBI. Next is any agreement made under this section shall be laid as soon as may be after it is made before Parliament. So the same what it was for central government, the same is for the state governments. Before making any agreement, so if any agreement is made under this section, it has to made before Parliament. It has to pass or it has to be approved by the Parliament. Next is section 21B, effect of agreements made between the bank and certain states before the 1st November 1956. Any agreement made under section 21 or 21A between bank and the government of a state specified in the explanation below and in force immediately before the first day of November 1956 shall, as from that day, have effect as if it were an agreement made on that day under section 21A between the bank and the government of the corresponding state, subject to such modifications, if any, being of a character not affecting the general operation of the agreement, as may be agreed upon between the bank and the government of the corresponding state, or in default of the state government, as may be made therein by the order of the central government. So section 21B addresses the impact of certain agreements that were made between RBI and the state governments before November 1, 1956, first day of November 1956. So since on November 1, 1956, the Indian states some of the states were reorganized based on the linguistic and administrative divisions. Many states, they were either merged or it was changed, or their boundaries were changed or their names were changed. So here the section 21B says that the agreement made between RBI and any state government before first day of November 1956 will remain effective. This will remain effective as if they were made with the newly organized state after that date, with only minor modifications if needed. Okay, and if RBI and the state government fails to agree on modifications, then central government can step in and modify the agreement through an order. Next is this explanation, you can just go through it. It is about in relation to the agreement made between bank and state of Andhra Pradesh. The state of Andhra Pradesh, now it is called as state of Andhra Pradesh. This is just basic information. Next is any agreement made under section 21A between the bank and the government of the part B state of Hyderabad, Madhya Bharat or Saurashtra shall be deemed to have terminated on the 31st day of October 1956. So clause 2 of subsection 21b says that any agreement made between the bank and the government of Part B state of Hyderabad, Madhya Bharat or Saurashtra will automatically be terminated on October 31, 1956. This termination is only for these three Part B states of Hyderabad, Madhya Bharat and Saurashtra. Next is section 22, right to issue banknotes. The bank shall have the sole right to issue banknotes in India and may, for a period which shall be fixed by central government on the recommendation of the central board, issue currency notes of the government of India supplied to it by central government, and the provisions of this act applicable to the banknotes shall, unless a contrary intention appears, apply to all the currency notes of the government of India issued either by the central government or by the bank in like manner as if such currency notes were bank notes, and references in this act to bank notes shall be construed accordingly. So this basically section 22 outlines the role of RBI to issue bank notes. RBI has the sole right to issue the bank note in India. In India, other than RBI, nobody has the right to issue the bank notes. And other than bank note, RBI also issues the currency notes of the government of India. This currency note is basically the 1 rupee note. So central government will supply these notes to RBI, and on behalf of central government, RBI will issue or circulate these notes in India. Second is, on and from the date on which this chapter comes into the force, central government shall not issue any currency note. So before formation of this chapter, the role of issuance of the currency notes was with the central government, but from the date on which this chapter comes into force, central government shall not issue any currency notes. RBI will only issue the currency notes in India. Next is 22A, non-applicability of certain provisions to digital form of banknotes. Nothing contained in section 24, 25, 27, 28 and 39 shall apply to the banknotes in digital form of the bank. So this section 24, 25, 27, 28 and 39, this 5 section will not apply to the banknotes in digital form. Okay, we will cover these sections one by one. Next is section 23, issue department. The issue of the banknotes shall be conducted by the bank in an issue department, which shall be separated and kept wholly distinct from the banking department, and the assets of the issue department shall not be subject to any liability other than liabilities of the issue department, as hereinafter defined in section 34. So this section deals with the operation of the issue department. The issue department is solely responsible for the issuance and management of the banknotes in India, while the banking department handles the regular banking operations of the RBI, and these two departments must be kept completely distinct from each other to ensure that the functions of the currency issuance and banking operations are handled independently, and the assets of issue department can only be used to cover the liabilities of the issue department as specified in the section 34. Okay. Next is, the issue department shall not issue bank notes to banking department or to any other person except in exchange for other bank note or for such coin, bullion or securities as are permitted by this act to form part of the reserve. So issue department cannot issue bank notes to the banking department or any other person without receiving an equivalent value in exchange. Okay. Next is section 24, denomination of notes. Subject to the provision of subsection 2, banknotes shall be of the denominational value of 2 rupees, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 50 rupees and 100 rupees, 500 rupees, 1000 rupees, 5000 rupees and 10,000 rupees, or of such other denominational values not exceeding 10,000 rupees as the central government may, on the recommendation of central board, specify in this behalf. So, subject to the provision of subsection 2, the banknote shall be of the denominational value of 2, 5, 10, then 20, 50, 100, 500, 1000, 5000, 10,000. But beside this denomination, if central board thinks that some more denominational value notes may be brought into the circulation, then it gives its recommendations to central government, and if it is approved, the new denominational notes are brought into circulation to help citizens transact it more easily. Just like rupees 200 note, which was introduced in March 2017 after recommendation of the central board, and same was for rupees 2000 note. See this, it was also brought after the demonetization of rupees 500 and 1000 note. Next is, the central government may, on the recommendation of central board, direct the non-issuance or the discontinuance of issue of banknotes of such denominational values as it may specify in this behalf. So here, if central board find it difficult to issue any banknotes of certain denominational values, say because of counterfeiting of such notes or for any other reason, then central board can recommend central government to direct the non-issue or to discontinue the issue of such banknotes. Recently we have seen that RBI is withdrawing 2000 rupees banknote, since it was observed by the bank that this denomination is not commonly used for the transaction, and also RBI was having adequate stock of other denominations banknotes to meet the currency requirement of the public. So the 2000 rupees notes are withdrawn under section 2, subsection 2 of section 24. So issuance of note is done under section 1 and discontinuance is done under subsection 2 of section 24. Okay. Next is section 25. Form of banknotes. The design, form and material of banknotes shall be such as may be approved by the central government after consideration of the recommendations made by the central board. So design, form and material of the banknotes, it will be approved by central government after considering the recommendations made by the central board. Next is section 26. Legal tender, character of notes. Subject to the provisions of subsection 2, every banknote shall be legal tender at any place in India in payment or on account for the amount expressed therein, and shall be guaranteed by the central government. So this section stipulates that at any place in India, be it be a village, city, town or island or any border state or border village of the country, the banknote will be considered as the legal tender. It will be considered as the legal tender at any place in India, which is also guaranteed by the central government. This banknote will be guaranteed by central government. On every note, if you see on the top there, it is written as Reserve Bank of India, and just below it, it is written that it is guaranteed by the government. It is written like that. So it means that the note is being guaranteed by the central government. Okay. Next, on recommendation of the central board, the central government may, by notification in the Gazette of India, declare that with effect from such date as may be specified in the notification, any series of banknotes of any denomination shall cease to be legal tender, save at such office or agency of the bank and to such extent as may be specified in the notification. So, on recommendation of central board, central government can declare any series of banknotes as of any denomination not to be a legal tender. This we have seen the case of rupees 500 and 1000 rupees note that were during Notbandi it were ceased to be a legal tender. Okay. Next is section 26A, certain banknotes to cease to be legal tender. Notwithstanding anything contained in section 26, no banknote of denominational value of 500 rupees, 1000 rupees or 10,000 rupees issued before 13th day of July 1946 shall be legal tender in payment or on account of the amount expressed therein. So, any note, any 500 rupees, 1000 or 10,000 notes which was issued before 13th January 1946, it will be not be considered as the legal tender in payment or on account for any other amount expressed therein. Okay, so it will cease to be a legal tender in India. Section 27, reissue of notes. The bank shall not reissue bank notes which are torn, defaced or exclusively soiled. Next is section 28, recovery of notes stolen, lost, stolen, mutilated or imperfect. Notwithstanding anything contained in any enactment or rule of the law to the contrary, no person shall of the right be entitled to recover from the central government or the bank the value of any lost, stolen, mutilated or imperfect currency note of the government of India of the bank note. So, no one has the right to recover the value of any currency notes that are lost, stolen, mutilated or imperfect from central government or RBI, provided that the bank may, with the previous sanction of central government, prescribe the circumstances in and the conditions and limitations subject to which the value of such currency notes or bank notes may be refunded as of grace, and the rule made under the proviso shall be laid on the table of Parliament. So, in the matter of grace, there are certain rules under which the currency note or the bank notes may be refunded if there are some mutilated or some half cut notes which are in 2 or 3 pieces. So some value maybe if it is half, if it depends upon its largest part of the note. So some money is refunded for such mutilated or soiled notes, and such rules are made under the proviso and shall be laid to the table of Parliament. Okay. Then next is section 28A, issue of special bank notes and special 1 rupee notes in certain cases. First is, for the purpose of controlling the circulation of bank notes without India, the bank may, notwithstanding anything contained in any other provision of this act, issue bank notes of such design, form and material as may be approved under subsection 3, hereinafter in this section referred to as special bank notes of the denominational value of 5 rupees, 10 rupees and 100 rupees. So, subsection 1 talks about the controlling of the circulation of banknotes outside India. Controlling the circulation of banknotes outside India. So, to do so, RBI issue denominational value of 5, 10 and 100 rupees notes having design, form and material as may be approved under subsection 3, and these notes will be referred to as special bank note. This will be called as special bank notes. Okay. Next is subsection 2, for the purpose of controlling the circulation of Government of India 1 rupee note without India, the central government may, notwithstanding anything contained in any other provision of this act or in the Currency Ordinance 1940, issue Government of India notes of the denominational value of 1 rupee of such design, form and material as may be adopted under subsection 3 herein after this section referred to as special 1 rupee note. So the subsection 2 is also similar to that of subsection 1. The basic difference between both is that in subsection 1 was talking about controlling the circulation of banknotes, while subsection 2 is talking about controlling of circulation of Government of India 1 rupee notes outside India. And so to do this, RBI issue 1 rupee note having design, form and material as may be approved under subsection 3, and this 1 rupee note will be referred to as special 1 rupee note. In subsection 1 it was special bank note, and here it is special 1 rupee note, and for both the design, form and material is given in subsection 3. So now let's see subsection 3. The design and form and material of the special banknote shall be such as may be approved by the central government after consideration of the recommendations made by the governor, and the special 1 rupee note shall be as the central government may think fit to adopt. So the design, form and material of special banknotes, it will be approved by the central government after consideration of the recommendations made by the governor, while the design, form and material of special 1 rupee note will be finalized by central government as it may think fit to adopt. Okay, in case of special 1 rupee note, the recommendations is not required. The recommendation of government is only required for the special banknotes. Next is fourth, neither special banknotes nor special 1 rupee notes shall be legal tender in India. So both the special banknotes and 1 rupee note will not be legal tender in India. Next subsection is the special 1 rupee note shall be deemed to be included in the expression rupee coin for all the purpose of this act except section 39, but shall be deemed not to be a currency note for any of the purpose of this act. So section 39 is about obligation to supply different forms of currency, under which RBI is obligated to issue currency notes or bank notes in exchange for coins, which is legal tender. But by excluding special 1 rupee note from section 39, RBI has no obligation to replace this special 1 rupee note with the new ones. Okay. Next is subsection 6. Where a special bank note is on its face expressed to be payable at a specified office or branch of the bank, the obligation imposed by section 39 shall only be on the specified office or branch, and further shall be subject to such regulations as may be made under this section. So in case of special banknotes, it will be explicitly mentioned on its face that it has to be payable only at specific office or branch of the RBI, which means that the holder of this note can only redeem or exchange it at that specified office or branch, and the redemption or exchange of this special banknote will be subject to certain regulations that may be made under this section. So now this regulation can be anything, like there could be some time frame for exchange or certain conditions for exchange. Anything can be there in this regulation. Next is subsection 7. The bank may, with the previous sanction of central government, make regulations to provide for all matters for which provision is necessary or convenient for the purpose of giving effect to the provision of this section, and in particular the manner in which the condition or limitation subject to which. First, bank notes and 1 rupee notes in circulation in any country outside India may be replaced by special notes issued under this section. Any such special notes may be exchanged for any other bank notes or any 1 rupee note. So RBI, with prior approval of central government, can make regulations for implementing the provision of this section, and this regulation can include first that how banknote and 1 rupee note in circulation outside India can be replaced by special notes issued under this section. So some regulation will be made. Then next, it can be the conditions and limitations under which these special notes can be exchanged for other bank notes or 1 rupee notes. Okay. Next is section 29, bank exempt from stamp duty on bank notes. The bank shall not be liable to the payment of any stamp duty under the Indian Stamp Act 1899 in respect of bank notes issued by it. So stamp duty is not liable to the payment. So bank is not liable to the payment of stamp duty for issuing of bank notes. Next is section 30, power of central government to supersede central board. In the opinion of central government, the bank fails to carry out any of the obligations imposed on it by or under this act, the central government may, by notification in the Gazette of India, declare that central board to be superseded, and thereafter the general superintendence and direction of the affair of the bank shall be entrusted to such agency as the central government may determine, and such agency may exercise the powers and do all acts and things which may be exercised or done by the central board under this act. So this section emphasizes the power of central government to supersede central board if in the opinion of central government the bank fails to carry out any of the obligations imposed on it by or under this act, and if such circumstances occur, the central board is superseded by the central government. So in such situation, the general superintendence and the direction of the affair of the bank, that is the day-to-day functioning and management of the bank, will be handed over to an agency determined by the central government in this behalf. Next is when action is taken under this section, the central government shall cause a full report of the circumstances leading to such action and of the action taken to be laid before Parliament at the earliest possible opportunity, and in any case within 3 months from the issue of the notification superseding the board. So when such action is taken by central government, it has to submit a full report of the circumstances before Parliament within 3 months from the issue of notification of superseding of the board. Okay. Next is section 31, issue of demand bills and notes. No person in India other than bank or as expressly authorized by this act, the central government shall draw, accept, make or issue any bill of exchange, hundi, promissory note or engagement for the payment of money payable to bearer on demand, or borrow, owe or take up any sum or sums of money on the bills, hundis or notes payable to bearer on demand of any such person, provided that checks or drafts including hundis payable to bearer or demand or otherwise may be drawn on a person's account with a banker, shroff or agent. This language is little complicated here. So this section restricts the issuance of instruments like bill of exchange and promissory notes and hundis that are payable to the bearer on demand by individual or organizations other than RBI or in specific cases the central government. However, an individual or an organization can issue this instrument, but it has to be payable to a particular person or entity. The restriction is only for payable to bearer on demand. Payable to bearer on demand. For this only restriction is there. Since this bearer promissory note or bill of exchange can be transferred from person to person, means the one who is having this note can redeem it if it is bearer, if it is payable to bearer. So it will be difficult to trace such transactions and the risk of fraud increases. However, next it is said that, however, for checks, draft and hundis drawn on person's account can also be made payable to bearer. This for check and for check, DD and hundis, it is okay to be made for the payable to bearer, but they are allowed to issue because they are tied to a specific bank account or any agent which provides a way to track this payment. But in case of bill of exchange or promissory note, if it is payable to the bearer on demand, then the such transactions cannot be traced. So it is only authorized to RBI or central government to issue such bill of exchange or promissory note which are payable to bearer on demand. The next is, notwithstanding anything contained in the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, no person other than the bank or expressly authorized by this act, the central government shall make or issue any promissory note expressed to be payable to the bearer of the instrument. So this is the same as I have explained above, that no person can issue promissory note payable to bearer. It must be payable to a specific person only, in the name of specific person. Next is, notwithstanding anything contained in this section, the central government may authorize any scheduled bank to issue electoral bond. Explanation: for the purpose of this subsection, electoral bond means a bond issued by any scheduled bank under the scheme as may be notified by the central government. So this clause was added later in 2017, which states that this electoral bond can only be issued by particular scheduled banks which are authorized by the central government to do so. Next is section 32, penalty. It was repealed by RBI Act 1974. Next is section 33, assets of issue department. The assets of issue department shall consist of gold coin, gold bullion, foreign securities, rupee coin, rupee securities of such aggregate amount as is not less than the total of the liability of the issue department herein after defined. So the assets of issue department shall not be less than the liability of issue department, and the assets of issue department shall consist of gold coin, gold bullion, foreign securities, rupee coin and rupee securities. Okay. Next is next subsection is, the aggregate value of gold coin, gold bullion and foreign securities held as assets, and aggregate value of gold coin and gold bullion so held not at any time be less than 200 crore or rupees and 15 crores of rupees respectively. So the aggregate value of all three, that is gold coin, gold bullion and foreign securities, the aggregate value of all these three shall not be less than 200 crores, and the aggregate value of gold coin and gold bullion only, it should not be less than 115 crores. So the remaining 85, if it is 115 is of gold coin and gold bullion, then foreign securities should be 85 crores. If gold coin and gold bullion is 150 crores, then foreign securities can be 50 crores. So minimum value for foreign securities is not mentioned here, but for aggregate of all three, that is gold coin, gold bullion and foreign securities held as an asset, it should be minimum 200 crores, and for gold coin and gold bullion it should be minimum of 115 crores at any given point of time. Next is, the remainder of the assets shall be held in rupee coin, Government of India rupee securities of any maturity, promissory notes drawn by the National Bank for any loan or advances under clause 4 of section 17, and such bill of exchange and promissory notes payable in India as are eligible for purchase by the bank under subclause A or subclause B or subclause BB of clause 2 of section 17 or clause 1 of section 18. So we have covered all this, so you can just go through it. Next is, for the purpose of this section, gold coin and gold bullion shall be valued at a price not exceeding the international market price. So gold coin and gold bullion's price shall not exceed international market price, and rupee coin shall be valued at its face value. Rupee coin shall be valued at its face value, and securities shall be valued at rate not exceeding the market rate for the time being obtained. Okay, so the gold coin and gold bullion has to be valued for price not exceeding international market price. In case of rupee coin, it shall be valued at a face value, and securities shall be valued at rates not exceeding the rupee market rates for the time being obtaining. Next is, of the gold coin and gold bullion held as assets not less than 17/28 shall be held in India, and all gold coin and gold bullion held as assets shall be held in the custody of the bank or its agency, provided that the gold belonging to the bank which is in other bank or in any mint or treasury or in transit may be reckoned as the part of the asset. So it says that 85%, this 17/28 means 85%, 17/20, so this is 85%. So 85% of the gold coin and gold bullion must be in India, in RBI or any of its agencies custody at any time. Okay, next is, for the purpose of this section, the foreign securities which may be held as part of the assets shall be securities of the following kinds payable in the currency of any foreign country which is a member of IMF, namely, so the RBI can hold certain securities that are denominated in the currency of any country that is member of IMF, and these securities can be in the form of A, balances with the bank which is principal currency authority of that foreign country, and any other balances or securities in foreign currency maintained with or issued by International Monetary Fund, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, International Development Association, or International Finance Corporation, or Asian Development Bank, or Bank for International Settlement, or any banking or financial institutions approved by central government in this behalf, provided that they are repayable within a period of 10 years. So the balances with the principal currency authorities, that is, this refers to the funds held with the central bank of foreign country, just like how Reserve Bank is Central Bank of India. So in the same way, this is principal currency authority, means the central bank of foreign country. So the securities can be in the form of balances with principal currency authority of that foreign country. Then further, RBI can also hold securities or balances issued by institutions like IMF, then International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD, which is also known as World Bank, then IDA, International Development Association, International Finance Corporation, Asian Development Banks, or Bank for International Settlement. And also RBI can hold foreign currencies reserves or securities with certain banks or financial institutions as approved by the central government, and this all should be repayable within a period of 10 years. Okay, next, bill of exchange bearing two or more good signatures and drawn on and payable at any time in that foreign country and having a maturity not exceeding 90 days. And next is, government securities of that foreign country maturing within 10 years. So all this can be held as part of the assets of issue department as a foreign securities. Any drawing rights representing a liability of IMF. So RBI can hold special drawing rights or other instrument from the IMF that represents liability of the IMF. Now this was all about the assets of issue department. Next is liability of the issue department. The liability of issue department shall be an amount equal to the total of the amount of the currency notes of the Government of India and bank notes for the time being in circulation. So whatever currency is in circulation, that is the liability of the issue department. Okay. Next, section 35 and 36 is repealed. So next is section 37, suspension of assets requirement as to foreign securities. Notwithstanding anything contained in the foregoing provisions, the bank may, with the previous sanction of central government for the period not exceeding 6 months in the first instance, which may, with the like sanction, be extended for the time to time by periods not exceeding 3 months at a time, hold as assets foreign securities of less amount in value than the required by the subsection 2 of section 33. So this section allows RBI with the prior approval of central government, to temporarily suspend or reduce the required amount of foreign securities that it must hold as assets, and this suspension can be applied for a period of 6 months. This suspension is for period of 6 months at first, and if necessary RBI can request extension in 3 months from central government. However, in subsection 2 of section 33, it has not mentioned, I have also told you that it has not mentioned that the minimum amount of foreign securities that RBI has to maintain. It is just mentioned that the total gold coins, bullion and foreign securities must be of 200 crore, and among which the minimum value of gold coin and bullion has to be 115 crore. So suppose consider a situation where the gold coin and bullion is 170 crore, then the remaining 30 crore has to be foreign securities. But for certain situation, if RBI is in need of foreign securities, which may lead to decrease in the foreign securities below 30 crores. So RBI with the prior approval of central government can temporarily hold the foreign securities. In our case it is 30 crores. Then it is to maintain as per subsection 2 of section 33. Okay. Next is obligation of government and the bank in respect of rupee coin. The central government shall undertake not to put into circulation any rupees except through the bank, and the bank shall undertake not to dispose of rupee coin otherwise than for the purpose of circulation. So this section, as per this section, central government agrees not to put any rupee coin into circulation except through RBI. So central government shall not undertake to put any circulation of rupee coin. So it will be done only through RBI only, and RBI agree to dispose of rupee coin except for the purpose of circulation. So bank shall undertake not to dispose of the rupee coin otherwise for the purpose of circulation. So for the purpose of circulation, RBI will dispose of these rupee coins. Next is obligation to supply different forms of currency. This is section 39. The bank shall issue rupee coin on demand in exchange for bank notes and currency notes of the Government of India, and shall issue currency notes or bank notes on demand in exchange for coin which is legal tender under the Coinage Act 2011. So the bank is obligated to issue rupee coin in exchange for bank notes and currency notes of Government of India, and vice versa. That is, bank is obligated to issue rupee coins in exchange for bank note and currency note of Government of India, and also it shall also issue currency notes or bank notes in exchange for coins which is legal tender. Okay. Then next is, the bank shall in exchange for currency note or bank note of 2 rupee or upward supply currency note or bank note of lower value of other coins which are legal tender under Coinage Act in such quantities as may, in the opinion of the bank, be required for the circulation, and the central government shall supply such coins to the bank on demand. If the central government at any time fails to supply such coins, the bank shall be released from the obligation to supply such coins to the public. So RBI must supply currency notes or bank notes of lower denominations or coins in exchange for currency note or bank notes of 2 rupees or higher for circulation for public. And since the coins are minted by central government, the central government shall supply such coins to the RBI on demand, and in case where the central government fails to supply such coins, then RBI shall be released from its obligation to supply them to the public. Next is section 40, transactions in foreign securities. The bank shall sell to or buy from any authorized person who makes a demand in that behalf at its offices in Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Madras, or at such of its branches as the central government may by order determine foreign exchange at such rates of exchange and on such conditions as the central government may from time to time by general or special order determine, having regard so far as rate of exchange are considered to its obligation to the IMF, provided that no person shall be entitled to demand to buy or sell foreign exchange of value less than 2 lakh of rupees. So only authorized person can demand for foreign exchange of value of more than 2 lakh at RBI offices of Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Delhi, or its branches at as determined by the central government, and the rate of exchange and conditions of these transactions are determined by central government, taking into account India's obligation to IMF. Okay. So this was section 40. Next, section 41, obligation to buy sterling. It was repealed by Act 23 of 1947. Then 41A, section 41A, obligation to provide remittance between India and Burma. It was also repealed by Act 11 of 1947. So I think we will stop here for today. In the next part we will cover from section 42. So that's it for today. Thank you.